What if I told you that becoming a millionaire is only half the game? The harder part is staying one, because once someone reaches $1 million, the rules change. You stop asking, how can I make more money? And start asking, how do I protect what I already have? How do I make it grow? And how do I make sure one bad decision doesn't destroy everything? The surprising truth is that many millionaires don't manage money by chasing the highest returns. They manage risk, cash flow, taxes, investments, and behavior. And this creates a completely different relationship with money. The average person sees $1 million as a giant pile of cash. A wealthy person sees it as a machine that needs to be protected, maintained, and continuously fed. So how exactly do millionaires manage their money? Let's break it down. Level 1. They don't treat all money the same. Imagine you suddenly receive $1 million. Your first instinct might be to put it in a bank account. It feels safe. But millionaires rarely think of their wealth as one giant balance. They divide it into different jobs. Some money is for living, some is for emergencies, some is for investing, some is for opportunities, and some is designed to stay untouched for years. This distinction is critical because $100,000 sitting in a checking account has a completely different purpose from $100,000 invested for 20 years. The Federal Reserve's data shows that wealthy households tend to own a much broader collection of financial and non-financial assets, including stocks, investment funds, real estate, retirement accounts, and business equity. Federal Reserve. Think of it like a company. A company doesn't put every dollar into one department. It keeps cash available. It buys equipment. It invests in expansion. It pays employees. It acquires assets. Millionaires often do something similar with personal wealth. They create buckets. Bucket 1 is liquidity, money they can access quickly. Bucket 2 is stability, assets designed to reduce the chance of financial disaster. Bucket 3 is growth, investments designed to compound over years. And bucket 4 is opportunity, capital waiting for the right deal. This is one of the first secrets of wealth management. Money becomes more powerful when every dollar has a job. Level 2, they buy assets, not just things. Here's where the game becomes interesting. A wealthy person can spend $100,000, or they can use $100,000 to buy something that potentially produces more money. That's the difference between consumption and capital allocation. Consider two people. Person A earns $200,000 a year. They upgrade their car, move into a larger house, take expensive vacations, buy designer clothes. Their income is high, but their expenses rise with it. Person B also earns $200,000, but they direct a large portion toward businesses, stocks, real estate, or other productive assets. 5 years later, they may have dramatically different net worths, because income is not wealth. What you do with the income creates wealth. The Federal Reserve found that business ownership becomes increasingly common higher up the income distribution. In its 2022 data, business equity remained an important component of household wealth. Federal Reserve. And this explains something important. Many millionaires aren't millionaires because they have enormous salaries. They're millionaires because they own things. They own shares, businesses, property, intellectual property, equity, financial assets. The goal isn't simply to earn another dollar. The goal is to make the dollars you already earned participate in producing more dollars. That's the beginning of compounding. And compounding is where wealth starts becoming unfair. Because the first million can take decades. But once the capital base becomes large enough, the money itself can start doing much of the work. Level 3, they diversify because they know one disaster is enough. Now comes one of the biggest misconceptions about wealthy investors. People imagine millionaires constantly searching for the next explosive investment, the next Tesla, the next Bitcoin, the next AI company. But serious wealth management is often much less exciting. It's about avoiding catastrophic mistakes. Imagine having $2 million. You put $1.8 million into one company because you're convinced it will explode. Then the company collapses. You haven't just lost an investment. You've lost years of your financial life. That's concentration risk, and it's one reason diversification matters. Recent financial guidance continues to emphasize the dangers of putting too much wealth into a single stock or business. Even a seemingly successful company can face leadership changes, competition, regulation, or unexpected failure. Reuters. Millionaires understand something psychologically difficult. You don't need to win every investment. You need to avoid losing everything. That's why wealthy portfolios can contain different asset classes: stocks, bonds, real estate, businesses, cash, and other investments depending on the person's goals and risk tolerance. Not because diversification makes you rich overnight, it doesn't, but because it can help make wealth more durable. Think about it like building a city. You don't build the entire city on one bridge. You build multiple roads, multiple power sources, multiple systems, because one failure shouldn't destroy the entire structure. That's how wealthy people often think about money. Not, how much can I make? But, what happens if I'm wrong? Level 4. They protect their biggest asset, their income. Here's a secret many people overlook. Before someone becomes wealthy, their biggest asset might not be their investment portfolio. It might be their ability to earn. Imagine a 35-year-old professional earning $300,000 a year. Their investment portfolio is worth $500,000. Which is more important, the portfolio or the next 20 years of earning power? In many cases, the answer is the income-producing ability. That's why wealthy people often spend money on education, networking, health, technology, employees, advisors, and businesses. Because increasing earning power can create more capital to invest, and more capital creates more compounding. This creates a powerful cycle. Skills create income. Income creates capital. Capital buys assets. Assets generate returns. Returns create more capital. And then the cycle repeats. But there is another layer. Millionaires also try to protect themselves from financial shocks. Emergency reserves, insurance, appropriate legal structures, tax planning, estate planning, and sometimes professional financial advice. The exact strategy varies enormously by country, income, assets, and family situation. But the principle is universal. The more wealth you build, the more expensive a mistake becomes. A person with $10,000 can survive losing $5,000. A person with $10 million cannot casually lose $5 million and simply start over. The game becomes less about gambling for upside and more about controlling downside. Level 5. They optimize the system, not their emotions. This might be the most important level of all, because money management isn't just mathematics, it's psychology. Markets fall, people panic, markets rise. People become greedy, a stock doubles. Suddenly everyone wants it. A recession arrives. Suddenly everyone wants cash. This emotional cycle destroys enormous amounts of wealth. That's why wealthy investors often build systems designed to reduce emotional decision-making. Automatic investing, scheduled contributions, long-term asset allocation, rules for buying, rules for selling, separate accounts, professional advice when necessary, and written financial goals. The point isn't to predict every market movement, it's to make fewer emotional decisions. Consider what happens when the market falls 30%. One investor sees disaster, another sees an opportunity. The difference isn't necessarily intelligence, it's preparation. If you have no emergency cash and your entire net worth is invested, a market crash feels terrifying. But if your short-term needs are already covered, you may be able to remain invested. That's why liquidity matters. Financial experts commonly emphasize keeping several months of expenses in accessible assets, although the appropriate amount depends on income stability and personal circumstances. The Wall Street Journal. The wealthy don't necessarily avoid fear. They build systems that prevent fear from controlling every decision. And this leads to the final lesson. Millionaires don't manage money only to become richer. They manage money to become harder to destroy. Conclusion. So how do millionaires manage their money? They don't simply save more. They build systems. They separate money by purpose. They prioritize productive assets. They diversify risk. They protect their earning power. They prepare for emergencies. They think about taxes and protection. And most importantly, they understand that wealth is not just about making money. It's about keeping money, multiplying money, and controlling the behavior that can destroy money. And perhaps the biggest lesson is this. A millionaire doesn't look at $1 million and ask, "What can I buy?" They ask, "What can this money become?" That question changes everything, because $1 million spent is a lifestyle. $1 million invested can become a foundation, and $1 million managed intelligently can become something much bigger than a number in a bank account. It can become freedom. Freedom from financial emergencies. Freedom from depending entirely on a paycheck. Freedom to take opportunities. Freedom to walk away from bad deals. And eventually, freedom to make decisions based on what you want, instead of what your money forces you to do. The goal isn't to look rich. The goal is to become financially difficult to break. And that's how millionaires manage their money.